bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. Ever heard of it?
Plague could get into people's blood and it could turn their limbs black. Humans get it from a flea bite.
It was an infectious disease caused by a specific type of bacterium called Yersinia pestis. See, in the Middle Ages, rats traveled on ships and brought fleas and plagues back with them. And because most people who got the plague died, and many often had blackened tissue due to gangrene, the bubonic plague was nicknamed the Black Death. Now, bubonic plague deaths exceeded 25 million people during the 14th century. So the next time you complain about your Wi-Fi lagging, or the fact that Netflix are doing ads on the standard plan, just remember, it could be worse. Now, as fascinating and somewhat terrifying as that may be, what does it have to do with the Dunning-Kruger Effect? Which brings me to the topic of confidence. Confidence is a tricky subject. It's almost a curse, because without confidence, well, we've all seen it. Fear of failure kills more dreams, ambitions, and desires than the Black Death. But what about being too confident? I mean, come on. You know what I'm talking about. Or for a more professional definition, a cognitive bias whereby people with limited knowledge or competence in a given intellectual or social domain greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence in that domain relative to objective criteria or to the performance of their peers or of people in general. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, quick backstory. The Dunning-Kruger Effect was first discovered and written about in 1999 by researchers David Dunning and Justin Kruger at Cornell University. The researchers spotted how much college students overestimated their poor performance in daily life and coined the term dual burden. This was used to describe that overly confident people can suffer from two things: ignorance, and also ignorance of their own ignorance. See, Dunning and Kruger tested college students on various subjects, including humor, English, grammar, and logical reasoning. They found that those who ranked in the bottom 25% of any of these test scores tended to predict themselves to be at the top of the pack. When they scored in the 12th percentile, they estimated themselves to be in the 62nd percentile. Conversely, college students in the top 25% predicted their scores to be slightly lower than what they actually were. I mean, it's crazy. The students who were competent and actually scored high tended to estimate a lower score for themselves, but the students who were incompetent in that specific subject tended to overestimate their score. Weird. So, if we zoom out and simplify, it may be easier to wrap our head around what we're dealing with here. Charles Darwin famously said, "Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge." And he's not alone. Confucius, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance." Stephen Hawking, "The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge." William Shakespeare, "The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool." Oh yeah, there's more. Socrates, "I know that I am intelligent because I know that I know nothing." Lastly, Bertrand Russell, "The trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure and the intelligent are full of doubt." Essentially, what all these brilliant-minded people throughout history were trying to say is that when we know very little about a subject, we tend to think we know a lot. We overestimate our abilities and are confident. But as we learn more, we start to realize how much we don't know, thus creating a paradox. Incompetent people believe they are competent, while competent people believe they are incompetent, and round the world goes. Now, how does this affect more practical concepts such as decision-making, mental health, and our identity? Imposter syndrome. Talented people tend to believe they are frauds and undeserving of their success, which leads to so much wasted potential. The more you learn, the more you doubt what you know. Doubt, fear, and crippling anxiety seriously affect high-functioning individuals. It's a vicious cycle that, if left uncontrolled, can seriously hinder your performance, or sometimes worse, kill your dream entirely and convince you to quit. But if harnessed, it can propel you to dominate your field and deliver results that you would have previously deemed impossible. Why, though? Well, think about it. If an employee is up for promotion, but they are worried they don't deserve it, they will either A, avoid it altogether by convincing themselves they are not good enough, or B, work hard to counter their doubt and ensure they get the promotion or the job. The doubt, fear, and crippling anxiety, if controlled and redirected, can fuel insane personal and professional growth. So many gifted people with potential to impact the world in a positive way lack one thing: someone in their corner who believes in them. That's it. Number 2, education. The act of learning requires an ability to accept the truth that you have more to learn. So having too much confidence distorts our perception of reality and essentially reduces our desire to learn. If we think about this, it makes sense. You're only going to learn something if you believe you don't already know it. The more you think you know, the less you try to learn. Which is why really successful people tend to seek continuous education, because educational habits such as reading and learning tend to lead to better skills and a more accurate understanding of what you don't know. The final area of study, decision-making and performance. Distorted perceptions of reality lead to misinformed decisions. In any field, it's better to say you don't know and then to go find out than to mistakenly assume you do know. Cleaner thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions leads to better performance. It really is as simple as that. The doctor who can question his or her own decisions and run a few extra tests to make sure is often the one who finds what no other doctor could see. The athlete who can question his or her own capabilities and find gaps that no one else can see is often the one who dominates the game. Growth is directly proportional to performance. The best find confidence not through affirmations, but through preparation, because preparation holds no cognitive biases. Preparation is unfiltered proof, which is a much more accurate representation of your current skill sets. Which leads me to the final question. How can we avoid the Dunning-Kruger effect as both individuals and organizations? The answer, feedback. Feedback systems essentially mitigate cognitive biases because they provide more frequent assessments. I'll drive the point home with 3 actionable steps. 1. Foster a feedback culture. For organizations, create an environment where constructive feedback is the norm. Implement 360-degree feedback systems to give employees a well-rounded assessment of their performance. Collaboration is key. Think about why professional athletes rely on coaches, trainers, nutritionists, etc. The network effects of their team create a highly accurate assessment of their current level of performance, which provides data that can be used to guide future decisions. Which leads me to the next one, objective metrics. Feedback systems are essentially similar to having your fingers on the pulse. With metrics, you can monitor your abilities and use the data to make strategic choices. Lastly, continuous learning. For individuals, never stop learning. It's that simple. And if you're wondering why, restart this video. For organizations, encourage regular training and professional development, and not the HR mandated fluff. Provide tactical growth. Your employees will perform how you condition them. The conditioning you provide will help employees stay updated on industry trends and foster self-awareness of their knowledge gaps. And when employees take charge of their own learning, they will bridge gaps that you probably didn't even know existed. By now, I trust you get the point. It is important to note that many academics now believe that the Dunning-Kruger effect is more of a statistical artifact than a real psychological effect. But, regardless of whether the original study was accurate or not, the basic premise still remains true. Ignorance is bliss, until it isn't. Hence why we all may know less than we think. Hit subscribe, like, and share to help the channel out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Okay.